All right, we'll say good morning, good Chodesh. Welcome. All right, so today's daf is daf Yud Daled. We're actually going to start, as I put up on the WhatsApp yesterday, we're going to start on the top of Yud Daled, 4 lines down from the top. Rabbi Yitzchak Omer. So we'll say our shir this morning and the shiurim this month, for the month of Kislev, are dedicated by Sammy and Malka Esterson in memory of their parents, Yitzchak Leib ben Aaron HaKohen and Hinda Bas Henoch Ephraim. Hope that in the merit of our Talmud Torah that their families will have an aliyah and the family in a challah. It's dedicated to learning in the zechus of Shina Bracha Bas Shoshana Viva, and I hope that she, together with all of us, should have incredible mazel over the course of this coming month. All right, I'll say, let's begin. Rabbi Yitzchak Omer. So remember again, we've been focusing on the various shitos based on the beginning Mishnah of the third parak regarding again which situations, which circumstances one receives Makkos. Specifically, again, in situations of chai b'krisos, when a person does something that makes him chayiv kares. So is there a din of Makkos or not? So already we find ourselves in the midst of a three-way machlokes. So today we're focusing on the shita of Rabbi Yitzchak. So the Gemara says, we'll say 4 lines down from the top. Rabbi Yitzchak Omer. Rabbi Yitzchak says the following: we'll say in general, when we say chayiv krisos bichlal, it means the Torah made a blanket statement when it came to those who were chayiv kares. But lama yotza kares bacho. So we'll say, why does the Torah single out the prohibition of kares when it ultimately comes to one's sister? In other words, we'll say that the Torah discusses chai b'krisos in general statements, but yet the Torah then singles out one who has relations with his sister as a chiyuv kares. Why is she singled out? So the Gemara says, Lam yasas kares bacho. So ladona b'kares for love Makkos, to teach you that she is only chayiv, to teach me that in that situation one is chayiv kares and not Makkos. I've also to understand, once you single out achoso, what the Gemara then does, Rabbi Yitzchak then does, is isolates from that a principle. The principle is that any time that you are chayiv kares, you will not be chayiv Makkos. Take a look at Rashi Lachalik. Rashi says over here. I'm sorry, not that. Rabbanan say kares ba'achos olamli. So Rabbanan say, why is it that we single out kares by a sister? Lachalik. We'll say ultimately again lachalik. What does that mean? It could be Rabbi Yochanan. Dam Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan learns about say Shim Asan Kulam Behelam Echad Chayiv Akol Echad Akol Alachas VeAchas. So we'll say, what does it mean lachalik? So lachalik means, let's say a man has relations with multiple women, all whom are chiyuv kares. But again, we'll say Helam Echad means what? In one lapse of awareness. What does it mean? One lapse of awareness, right? So one lapse of awareness. I'll say what it means is, again, he doesn't know that it's prohibited. Meaning, one lapse of awareness means he engages in all of these acts. There's no sidebars on this. Avron, can you switch seats? Right? So there's no. So the ideal lapse of awareness means he just doesn't know that these unions are prohibited. Look at Rashi for just a moment. L'chalik, we'll say on Rashi on top, 4th line down from the top, last white line. Lefi shakala kol ha'arayos b'kares achos. Because we'll say, in general, again, when the Torah is grouping all of the arayos are grouped under one umbrella lav. So the Gemara says, b'kares achos hayisi omer imasan kula mehela echad eno chayiv ela achos. So we'll say the fact that all of the chiyuvei kares are mentioned together under one umbrella lav, I would have thought that what that teaches me is what? That if I were to violate multiple prohibitions, in other words, I were to engage in multiple illicit unions, since it's all mentioned under one umbrella lav, I would have thought that what? That there's only one prohibition, there's only one chiyuv kares, in that case, lekach, yatsa kares b'achosa lechalik, dehabi davar shahaya bichlal, v'yatsa min haklal, v'lamed al atzmo shemischayev ala li atzma, imasa im chavroseh, but lo lelamed al atzmo yatsa, ever lelamed al haklal kulo yatsa. Ma chosam yuchad. Here's the limud. Just like achoso, just like sister is singled out, she erva v'chayev ala afilu b'fnei atzma. Av kol she erva chayev lena b'fnei atzma. So both like, so that Rabbanan understand that the Torah singles out kares b'achoso to teach you that if a man were to violate multiple illicit unions, each of them having their own chiyuv kares, that you would be chayiv for each other. You say to yourself, what does it matter if you're chayiv kares once or you're chayiv kares 25 times? So we'll say again, if you hold ultimately again that there's malchus for kares, then ultimately, again, that makes a very big distinction. Why? Because although you can only get kares once, you can get Malkus multiple times. So that's why, so we'll say, so Rabbi Yitzchak, so now you understand what the kishkas of this machlokes. So Rabbi Yitzchak ultimately says that we use achoso to teach me what? We use achoso to teach me that just like achoso is only kares and not Malkus, so to again, any chi of kares, I will say, is only kares and not Malkus. What do the Rabbanan do with the singling out of achoso? They use a different drasha. They say the Torah comes along and singles out achoso to teach you that every single chi of kares is reckoned separately. For what purpose? That if you go out and you violate multiple chiyuvei kares behelam echad in one lapse of awareness, that halacha l'maisa again you are judged individually for each other. Remember, the Rabbanan are coming to from the vantage point that what? That if you go out and you violate the chi of kares, you do get malchus. So I'll say if that's the case, then l'maisa again, if you violate multiple chiyuvei kares, you will get multiple sets of malchus for each infraction. Rabbi Yitzchak lechalik minolei. How does Rabbi Yitzchak know that ultimately, again, we look at each individual chi of kares on its own, and we do not group them together, even if one violated them behelam echad in one lapse of awareness? Where does he get this from? Nafkalei meve'el isha benidas tumasa. The pasuk says, Rabbi Osai, the pasuk says, "Ve'el isha benidas tumasa lo sikrav legalos ervasa." I'll call isha v'isha. Was it interesting enough? The Torah phrases this in the singular. And to a woman in her nida state, again, literally it means you shall not come close, but ultimately what it means, legalos ervasa, you should not engage in relations. So nida is an example, ultimately, again, of one of the arayos, one of the prohibited illicit unions. And therefore, again, the Torah explicitly says to a woman, singular, you shall not have relations with her when she's a nida. Why the singularity of this love? Teach you that I'm chayiv for every single individual act. I've Rabbanan amitefa play meha. Why don't the Rabbanan learn it out from here as well? To which the Gemara says, "Inachinami, you're right. The Rabbanan could also learn it out from Elisha benidas tumaso lo sigrav ve'ela kares da'chos olamri." So if that's the case, that the Rabbanan could also learn out the Bosa that you treat every single chi of kares on its own. Meaning, even if there are multiple acts committed behelam echad, they're still each of them judged on their own. So therefore, again, if you tell me that he can learn that out from Elisha benidas tumasal lo sigrav, so then what do we do? What do the Rabbanan ultimately do with achoso? The Rabbanan misevich lemiha enachinami. Okay, the Rabbanan will agree with Rabbi Yitzchak that you can learn out from Elisha benidas tumasal. Then be'alakaris ba'achoso lamali. So then, what do the Rabbanan need the kares ba'achoso to learn? Why single out achoso? What does that teach me? L'chayvo al achoso va'al achos aviv. Bless you. Va'al achos imo. They both said to teach me that what? That I am chayiv for if man has relations with his sister, he is chayiv ultimately again, whether she is his paternal sister or his maternal sister, or whether he is the sister of his mother and his father. That you chayiv for sister in all variations. To which the Gemara says, now the chap over here is the following. Let's say there's a man who behelam echad has relations with 3 women. One is his paternal sister, one is his maternal sister, one is his complete sister, right? And I will say this all happens, but it was a long day, right? This all happens ultimately again in one lapse of awareness to teach. Wow is right. Well said, right? But by the way, it's going to get even better, right? Or worse, I should say, or worse, right? So I'll say, so all of this happens again, one lapse of awareness, that to teach me that I'm chayiv, Rabbi say, I'm chayiv for each of these women individually. To which the Gemara says, Pshita. Now that's obvious. I will say, if a man has relations with 3 women, one who is his full sister, one who is paternal sister, one who is his maternal sister, so of course he's going to be chayiv 3 times. After all, hare gufen michulakin, hare shemos michulakin. I will say, there are 3 different women, and also interestingly enough, what does mean shemos michulakin? There are 3 different prohibitions. In other words, there are 3 different identities. One is a full sister, and 2 are half sisters, and each of the half sisters are halves from different sides. So, what's the hava mean that you only be chayiv once for relations with all 3 of these women? To which the Gemara says, listen to this. So, I'm sorry. Hari guf mechulakin, hari shamas mechulakin. Ella, listen to this. L'chayvo ala choso. Rather, I will say what it's coming to teach me is the following. L'chayvo ala choso, shehi achos aviv, she achos imo. Rather, I will say what the Torah is coming to teach me is if a man has relations with 1 woman who is, on one hand, his full sister and his half sister from his mother's side and from his father's side, that is going to be chayiv 3 times. We'll say, how can you possibly come up with a case like that? With the Rasha, the son of a Rasha. We'll say, look at Rashi for just a moment. So listen to this. The Gemara says, Barishia. Here's the case. It's almost right across. Habo al imos. We'll say this begins with a man who has relations with his mother. What happens? Vaholit shtei banos. He has 2 daughters with his mother. V'chazer uba al achas mehen. Then again, the man has relations with one of the daughters he fathered with his mother. So essentially, he fathers another child with his daughter / sister. Uba al achas mehen vaholit ben. So this man, Abosai, who again produced 2 daughters with his mother, then has relations with one of those daughters, one of the girls who's the offspring from that union. They have a son. Uba haben al achos imo. And then what happens? The son has relations with his mother's sister. Now his mother's sister also. Let's read Rashi. Uba ben al achos imo she achoso va'achos aviv. And as it turns out, when this son has relations with his mother's sister, it's not only his mother's sister, but it's also his sister and also the sister of his father. Like West Virginia. So the Gemara says, so the idea over here is that what the Gemara will say, just understand, this obviously is a crazy case. What the Gemara is trying to come up with is the following. Is a situation where a man has relations with one woman, but that one woman has multiple halachic identities. So we'll say, so the case over here is, again, you'll work it out with Rashi again, but the case over here is you have a man who's having relations with one woman who is his sister, who is also, again, his father's sister, who is also the sister of his mother and the sister of his father. So we'll say the idea over here is this is one, so it's one act of relations that's triggering all of these prohibitions. So what the Gemara is now saying is, how do I know that I'm chayiv for each of the prohibited identities? In other words, even though there's only one act of relations, but that one act of relations ultimately, again, triggers multiple illicit unions. So how do I know that I'm going to be chayiv for each of the individual illicit unions? So we learn that out ultimately, again, from the fact that the Torah goes out of its way to isolate the prohibition of achoso, that is kares by achoso, by one sister. Torah could have just left that under the general umbrella, ultimately again of kares bearing prohibitions. The fact that it's singled out achoso tells you that whenever you engage in illicit unions, you are chayiv for each union individually. The chiddush is that even if each of those identities are contained within the same person, you will still be chayiv for each of those prohibitions. Rabbi Yitzchak, so we'll say, where does Rabbi Yitzchak know this from? Nafkele mekabachomer. We'll say, listen to this. He learns from a kabachomer. What's the kabachomer? This sanya. Rabbi Akiva. Sha'alti es Rabbi Gamliel, Rabbi Yoshua, be'itlis shal imum. We'll say, listen to this. So Rabbi Akiva says, I asked, I'm Rabbi Akiva, Sha'alti es Rabbi Gamliel, Rabbi Yoshua, Brit Hashem. So we'll say, Rabbi Gamliel, Rabbi Yoshua, where is in the itlis of imum. What's itlis? Rashi says, Makom shemochrin habasar b'makulin. This is interesting. So this is where they go ahead and they sell the meat. Now makulin are staffs. What this is like a meat warehouse. Not like the supermarket. This is where you go to buy meat in bulk. Why are they going right to the warehouse? Why are they going to buy meat in bulk? Listen to this. Shebalchu likach behema lemishte binosh Rabbi Gamliel. Rabbi Gamliel was making a chasana for his son. He was making a chasana, and this is such a beautiful image. Rabbi Gamliel takes his chaver Rabbi Yoshua. It's like, you imagine, they're going shopping for the wedding together, right? So Rabbi Gamliel and Rabbi Yoshua are in the meat market. Mamish in the meat market to purchase meat, ultimately for the chasana of the son of Rabbi Gamliel. And Rabbi say, what happens? Who bumps into them? Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi say, what do they start talking about? So you have to understand something. So now you understand, Rabbi Akiva bumps into the two Gedali Hadar. He has some unresolved shilas. He's got to ask them. I will say, either in the middle of shopping for meat for Rabbi Gamliel's son's wedding, he's got to ask them, all right, Rabbi, what's the halacha? What happens if a man has relations with his sister, who is the sister from his father, the sister of his mother. What's the halacha? So the Gemara says, Chayiv, so he asked, Chayiv al kulon, Ino Chayiv al kulon ela achos, O Chayiv al kol achas va'achas. As we'll say, what Rabbi Akiva was asking Rabbi Gamliel and Rabbi Yoshua was, if a man has relations with a woman, and she has multiple halachic identities, and he has relations with her, is he only chayiv once for one act of relations, or is he chayiv for every prohibited identity which she contains? So we'll say, so they said, Amrulo, they said to him, Zula Shana, the truth is we don't know the answer to this case. Aval Shamadu, but we did hear the following. We'll say, so Rabbi Gamliel and Rabbi Yoshua, tried to answer from the following case. What's the following case? We'll say, let's say a man has relations with 5 women, all of whom are nidos. We'll say 5 individual women. We'll say in one lapse of awareness. What does it mean, one lapse of awareness? He didn't know that it's prohibited to have relations with a woman who is a nida. So again, both say, by the way, you understand that when we say halamach, we have this image. Well, don't have any images, but we have this image. We have this idea, this conception that this is all happening at once. Understand, a man didn't know that relations with the nida are prohibited. I both said it could be that he didn't know this for 5 years, for 10 years. Meaning he didn't know the halacha. He's not a married man, so he didn't know the halacha. So whatever the halam is, the halam could be a prolonged period of time. The point is, during that period of time where he did not know that a woman who is a nida is asura, he has relations with multiple women who are nidos. Okay, then what happens? So Sir Begamil and Rabbi Yoshua say to Rabbi Akiva, listen, Akiva, I don't know we didn't hear anything about the halacha of a woman who is a half-sister from the mother, a half-sister from the father. We didn't hear any of those halachas about a woman who has multiple identities. What we did hear is that if a man has relations with 5 women who are all midos, what's the halacha? Shechai v'akalachas v'achas. That he's chayiv, Rabbi, say, for what? For every single act of relations. Even though, again, they're all occurring in one period of knowledgelessness. Ignorance, thank you, that's a much better word, right? Of halachic ignorance, even though they're all occurring in one period of halachic ignorance, nevertheless, again, you're chayiv for every single one. And Rabbi Gamliel and Rabbi Yoshua say, we can make a kavachomer. What's the kavachomer? Umanida shehim shem echad chayiv akol achas va'akos. And we'll say, nida is one prohibition. He's violating the same prohibition multiple times. Yet what? And again, all in the same lapse of awareness, all in the same period of ignorance. Yet what? He's going to be chayiv for each and every one. So kan shemos lo kol shekin. We'll say here in this case, where although it's one woman, but she has 3 different distinct prohibited identities. In other words, one act of relations triggers 3 prohibitions. I would certainly assume that what? That he's going to be chayiv 3 times. So we'll say the other opinion will say vidach kavachomer perchui. Other people will say it's not a good kavachomer. Manida shekin gufin mechulakim. See, Rabbi say here's the difference. As much as nida is one prohibition, but in this case, what's happening? It's 5 different women. It's 5 different women. So I'll say even though it's the same prohibition, I can hear why. Even though it's the same isser of nida, it's 5 different women. It's 5. In gufin mechulakim means 5 distinct bodies. In other words, it's clearly 5 different averos. The fact that it happens to be the same avero, the same mitzvah that he's violating, doesn't change the fact that it's 5 different women, 5 distinct entities. However, again, the other opinion will say you're right. It is kavachomer pircha, meaning it is a broken kavachomer. However, elanaf gale me'achosa de seifa. But I will say we can still learn it out. Ultimately, again, there is an extra achoso in the end of that pasuk. I will say, just to understand how this pasuk reads. If you have the Torah or on the side of your Gemara, you can see it. The way the pasuk reads is v'ish asher yikach es achoso bas avivo basimo v'ra es ervasa v'hisir es ervaso chasedu v'nichrusu le'enei bnei amam ervas achoso gila. We'll say there's an extra achoso at the end of the pasuk. What does that extra achoso teach me? So the Gemara is saying the extra achoso teaches me that every single Isser Kares is reckoned on its own. I'm use the word own merit, but I'm not using that word correctly. It's reckoned on its own. That even if a person violates multiple prohibitions of kares, each one is still looked at and it's on its own, and therefore he's judged or he's held liable for each one on its own. So the Gemara says, we'll say this other thing, we'll say, no, I need that achoso at the end of the pasuk. Why? To teach me that I'm chayiv ultimately again for a full sister. In the beginning of the pasuk, the Torah just reckons a sister who's my maternal sister or a sister who is my paternal sister, but doesn't necessarily teach me about the sister who's a full sister. Therefore, again, the achoso at the end of the pasuk comes to teach you that I'm chayiv even for a full sister. What do we learn from that? Lomar shin onshin min adin. This teaches me that again, I cannot. You see this concept in onshin min adin. Means that you cannot punish someone based on a kal v'chomer. If you're going to go ahead and punish someone for some type of infraction, you have to have a pasuk that supports that assertion. Therefore, again, as much as I could have made a kal v'chomer that says what? Madoch, if a sister from my father is an Isser Kares, and if a sister from my mother is an Isser Kares, then what? Then what? Certainly a full sister from my father and mother would be an Isser Kares. But in Onshman, we don't punish people based on kal v'chomers. Right? If you're going to put someone death, you're going to give someone kares, that has to come from a first pasuk. So the second achos from the pasuk comes to teach that even a full sister. Ibay sema gamra onesh me'asara. The Rebbe says so one possibility. V'idach, all the other opinions say gamra onesh me'asara. The Rebbe say perhaps we could go ahead and we could learn out the onesh, the punishment from the law. And the Rebbe say that even though we have two psukim, one for the onesh, one from the ashara, I can learn out the onesh from the ashara. Be by sema. The other possibility is amad beis. Be by sema. Navkalei. I can learn it out. Me'achoso dereisha. I can learn out from achoso in the beginning of the pasuk. Look at Rashi. Me'achoso dereisha. The matzi lemichtav ki yikach es bas aviv o bas imo. I didn't have to say the word achoso. It could have just said if a man has relations with the daughter of his father or the daughter of his mother. But the fact that it says the word achoso ultimately again teaches me what? That we're singling out achoso to say that achoso, that was just like achoso. If you have relations with her, ultimately again you will get kares. So too again, even if she triggers multiple kares prohibitions, you'll be chayiv for each and every one. So too in every situation of kares, you're chayiv for each individual prohibition. To which the Gemara says, "V'idach homi b'alei lechalik." 1 second. That first achoso, the other opinion will say no. That will say that achoso ultimately teaches me that halacha l'maisa I am chayiv for each individual chiyav kares. I'm sorry, I read that wrong. V'idach hagimi b'alei lechalik lekares l'mefating u'lesach. I will say this is very interesting. The other opinion will say that additional inclusion of the word achoso comes to teach me the need to be mechalik prohibitions, I will say, in a totally unrelated situation. What situation I will say? The case of mefating usach. I will say the halacha is that one is not permitted to go ahead and recreate either the ketores or the shemen hamishcha, right, anointing oil outside of the Beis Hamikdash. What happens if I go ahead and I recreate oil, shemen hamishcha, outside of the Beis Hamikdash? So I will say there are two different prohibitions. There's the prohibition, mefatim. I will say mefatim literally means to make it, and sach means to what? To use it. So I will say, how do I know that if I make it and I use it, I'm chayiv 2 different times, one for making it and one for using it? So I will say, interestingly enough, this one opinion holds that I learn it out from the extra achoso by kares. I will say there's an extra achoso by kares, and if I don't need, there's an extra achoso by achoso. If I don't need that achoso there to teach me that I'm mechalik in dinei kares, so if I don't need it there, then what? I could apply to this other case. Look at Rashi for just a moment. We'll say it's the second Rashi from the top. Lemafati and Besach. Dehavinami shnei lavin v'kares echad. We'll say this is a case as we're going to see of 2 prohibitions, but only one mentioning of kares. V'hotzrach lana lechalik b'neihem kimosh hotzrach chilik ba'arayos im eno inyan kan t'nei inlikai. So we'll say it's actually very interesting. What the Gemara is suggesting over here is that there's a kind of there's a general common denominator or a general connection between all chiyuvei kares. And therefore what? If I have an extra word and I don't need it in this context, I could apply it to a different chiyuv kares. So where it's standing right now, I will say, at least according to one opinion, I have an extra achoso out there. I've got an extra achoso. I don't need it in the context of a sister. Why? Because in the context of a sister, I've already established that I am chayiv for each individual chiyuv kares, even if, by the way, if what? Even if those individual prohibitions are contained within the same person. Now I have an extra achoso out there. So where am I going to use it? If I don't need it by achoso, I'm going to use it ultimately again by the case of mafatim and sachar. We're going to see that inside for just a moment. V'idach savar l'krei belazar. I'm Rabbi Oshia. I'm Rabbi Oshia. Kamakom shata motzei shnei lav in the kares echad. Anytime you see two prohibitions, but only one mentioning of kares, chalukin heim lakarban. I can still go ahead and assume that they are separate and distinct in terms of their chiyuv karban. Or as I will say that even though if I have two prohibitions, but there's only one chiyuv kares mentioned, I could assume that one chiyuv kares devolves upon both those prohibitions, and therefore in the case of chayiv karban, each will get their own karban. V'bay sema lo savar la Rebbe Lazar v'naf galei maybe ish asher yishkav as isha dava. But the other possibility is he doesn't hold like Rebbe Lazar. And where does he learn it out from? He learns it out from the pasuk of ish asher yishkav as isha dava. That if a man will go ahead and have relations with a woman who is in nida. V'idach, but the other opinion is saying ahumi baile lichid Rabbi Yochanan. Gam Rabbi Yochanan mishram b'yishma yochai minayin sheni isha tnei ad sheyetze madve derech ervasa. And we'll say so again. We're just going back and forth, trying to figure out ultimately what is everyone doing with these respective psukim. What is everyone doing with these respective psukim? So again, the way we end off this sugya is with a halacha from a woman who is a nida. So we'll say, so one opinion learns out that we can use this pasuk ultimately to teach you about a chiyuv kares. The other opinion says, no, I use this pasuk teaching about a din in hilchos nida. What's the din in hilchos nida? Minayin she'ena isha tmeya ad sheyetze madveh derech ervasa. Well, say, how do I know that a woman only becomes a nida? If what? If the menstrual flow exits her body derech ervasa, through the opening of her erva. Where do I know that from? We'll say, now what does it mean through the opening of the erva? Where else is it coming out? Where else is it coming out from? So we'll say, this is actually interesting halacha, which actually could have potential ramifications. Let's say a woman has an incision in her abdomen, and their uterine blood ultimately again comes out through her abdomen, which can happen when? A C-section. So we'll say this actually has halacha l'maaseh ramifications. So how do I know that even if uterine blood comes out of the abdomen but doesn't come out of the derech erva, that she's not a nida? Where do I know that from? Shene'emar v'ish asher yishkav es isha dava v'gila es ervasa melamed she'na isha tmeya ad sheyetze miderech ervasa. We'll say ultimately again it teaches me that what? That a woman only becomes a nida only if uterine blood comes out ultimately again derech ervasa, from the normal natural entry point of her erva of the body. But ultimately again, if what we call dam nida exits from other ways of the body, it would not necessarily make her a nida. Now I will say, now again in general, interestingly enough, so C-sections have their own complications in hilchos nida. See, we assume in general that once a woman ultimately goes into labor, or once a woman delivers a baby, that there is some blood that ultimately must come out derech ervasa. Technically speaking, if there were to be no blood that were to come out, then all of the dam nida were to come out from an incision in the abdomen, not derech ervasa. So technically, a woman would not become a nida. Halachically, we generally consider that to be impossible. So therefore, again, usually a woman will always become a nida. But again, on a technical level, if it's not enough for it to be uterine blood, it has to be uterine blood that comes out derech ervasa to make her a nida. So we'll say, so what do we come out with from this sugya? So first of all, again, we come out with this interesting piece in hilchos nida, just so you understand. Also, the Rambam discussing this idea in the case of haba chamesh nashim. So we'll say, so just there are a couple of cases of interesting halacha l'maisa over here, which is that number one, if a man does have relations with 5 women, all of whom are nidos, behelam echad, with we'll call it one lapse of awareness or one period of ignorance, he doesn't know that it's asr, he will be chayiv for each and every one of those prohibitions. And I will say, now I'll tell you something interesting. This is as opposed to, we're not the into it. So we'll see. Again, we'll actually get into this in Maseches Nida. A lot of interesting ramifications of this case. But he will be chayiv ultimately again 5 times. 5 times. Why? Because of gufin mechulakim. Even though he's violating the same prohibition over and over and over, and it's the same lapse of awareness, will be chayiv 5 times. Furthermore, if a man has relations with a woman, who is his half-sisters, full sisters, father sisters, mother sister, whatever it is, right? All of these identities contained in one woman, he will be chayiv for all of those prohibitions. Even though it's only one act of relations. I will say, but there's also an important lesson that comes from this. You know, the Tosas brings down, Tosas and Krisos brings down this episode. Remember, where does this whole discussion take place? Rabbi Akiva engages Rabbi Gamliel and Rabbi Yoshua in the meat market, right? He engages them while they're shopping in the shuk. So Tosas Rabbi Seches Krisos says something beautiful for all of you. Why does the Gemara tell us that this conversation took place in the supermarket, in the shuk? Why do they need to tell us that? So Tosas says, "L'hodia shvachan sha'afa pi shahayu trudim beis askus va'achanos la'asiv nosh Rabbi Gamliel." Even though the Rabbi Gamliel and Rabbi Yoshua were there for the purpose of purchasing provisions for the wedding, hayu oskin b'divrei Torah. We'll say an incredible idea. That even though they were shopping, I would say a Jew, a Yid, is always involved in Torah. It doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter what you're doing. It doesn't matter how busy you are. You know, again, Rabbi Gamliel would have had every right to say, Akiva, now, do we have to do this now? Right? Do we have this? Can you call me tomorrow? Right? We'll talk about this later on. Right? And first of all, say, you know, again, you ever been to the shuk? The shuk is not exactly the kind of place where you could carry on a meaningful and deep and sustained conversation. There's a lot going on there. Rabbi Gamliel would have been within his right, ultimately, again, to say this is not the right place. We'll say, for Torah, it's always the right place. And for Torah, it's always the right time. And the muster, ultimately, for us, we'll say, is the need to bring in Torah to every aspect of our existence. Whether I'm in the supermarket, whether I'm at work, whether I'm on the boat, wherever it is. The idea is that the greatest accomplishment in life is if Torah enters in, if Torah pervades every arena of your existence, that's a successful spiritual life. Okay, the Gemara goes right there, we'll say. Let's just finish up this sugya. Let's remember again. Tamei HaKodesh was someone who is Tamei, who eats sacrificial food items. Remember again, what did the Mishnah say? He's Chayiv Kares. He is Chayiv Kares and he gets Makkos. So Bishlam Habala Mikdash Tamei. So we'll say if somebody enters into the Beis HaMikdash in a state of Tumah, so remember again, you get Kares and you also get Makkos. This is reflecting the opinion who says that anytime you Chayiv Kares, you also get Makkos. So we'll say Ksiv Onesh Ksiv Hazara, because we'll say we're entering into the Beis HaMikdash in a state of Tumah. It says both the Onesh and the Hazara. It says both the punishment as well as the warning. Onesh Dichsiv. As Mikdash Hashem Timei v'nichrasa. Pasuk says you have defiled the Beis Hamikdash of Hashem and you will be cut off. But Azhara, the warning is v'lo yitamu es machaneim. Ela tamei shachal es hakodesh. So we'll say, but if somebody is tamei and they eat sacrificial items, or kodesh, doesn't have to be sacrificial items, it could be any kodesh item as we'll see. How do I know that there's a chiv kares and malchus? Bishlama onesh. We'll say first wide line. Bishlama onesh ksiv v'nefesh asher tochal basar mizerach hashlama shel Hashem v'tumasalav v'nichrasa. So it's quite a first pasuk that ultimately, again, a person who will eat of sacrificial meat from the shlamim, and he is tamei, he gets kares. We'll say, where do I see the warning? Remember again, I need both the ashara and the onesh. So where's the warning? Minayin, Reish Lakish Amar, B'chol Kodesh Losiga. Reish Lakish is other out from the pasuk of you may not touch any kodesh. That will say, as we're going to see in just a little bit. So according to Reish Lakish, siga can't just mean touch. Rather, again, what it means is consumption. Rabbi Yochanan Omer Tani Bardula Asya Tumasa. What's to make it Gzer Shava? What's Gzer Shava? Ksiv Hacha. It says by the case of a Tamei person who eats Kodesh. V'Tumasa V'Nichrasa. Uksiv Hasa. And it says over there by one who enters into the Beis HaMikdash in a state of Tumah. Tamei Yeh Od Tumasa Bo Malahalon Onesh V'Ashara. Just like over there, we'll say there's both an Onesh and Ashara. Afkan Onesh V'Ashara. So over here, we also say we essentially make the Gzir Shava and we apply the Onesh and Hazara here as well. I understand Rish Lakish like Rabbi Yochanan. Why not? Because Gzir Shava lo gamir, because he just doesn't hold the Gzir Shava. I was supposed to say for Gzir Shava, you have to have a Masorah that the Gzir Shava exists. So Rish Lakish doesn't have that Masorah, therefore he doesn't have the Gzir Shava. And then Rabbi Yochanan might have no Rish Lakish. Why doesn't Rabbi Yochanan hold like Rish Lakish? Amar Lachav. Hahu Azhar L'Truma. Oh, because Rabbi Yochanan will say that love, that B'chol Kodesh Losiga, that Rish Lakish Kodesh, is in fact, I will say, not an Azhara for Kodesh, but rather what? An Azhara for Truma. That's hard for truma. Reish Lakish asur l'truma minalei. So where does Reish Lakish learn out the prohibition that you can't eat truma in a state of tuma? Nafkalei mi ish mizera aron butzarua ozav. The pasuk says ish any man from the offspring of Aaron, if he's a tsarua, if he has saras, or if he's a zav. So what's the halacha? So bakodshim lo yochal ada shayita. He can't eat from kodesh until he becomes pure. So listen to this ezu davar shu shava b'zaro shel Aaron. Now, interestingly enough, the pasuk is referring to something that zaro shel Aaron. Ish mizera Aaron means any person who is an offspring of Aaron is permitted to eat it. What is something that everyone who is an offspring of Aaron, both say, when we say everyone, who does everyone include? Everyone includes men and women. What is something who everyone who is part of the offspring of Aaron is permitted to eat? Havi Omer zet truma. Oh, both say, we know that halacha is that truma is permitted for consumption by all members of the Kohanic family, including women. The idach hahi la'achila. Oh, listen to this. Rabbi Yochanan says, you're right, but there are two different prohibitions. One is to teach you that if you are tameh, you cannot eat truma, and the other is to teach you that if you are tameh, you cannot touch truma. Reish Lakish, hai b'chol kodesh lo siga, lahachi uda asa. Reish Lakish says, but 1 second. Is that what that pasuk comes to teach me? Ha'umi b'ile l'tameh shenaga b'kodesh. If we need that pasuk to teach me about a tamei who comes and touches something, right? A person who is tamei who touches something that is kodesh to itmar tamei shnaga b'kodesh. If someone who is tamei teaches something that is kadosh, so ultimately, Reish Lakish Omer Loke. Reish Lakish says, listen to this. Reish Lakish says you get malchus for touching something that is kodesh. Now that's quite dramatic. Now, what happens if you are tamei, you touch something that's kodesh? So the thing becomes tamei. Now, interestingly enough, so what have you done? Now, what you've done is, bepashtus, you've defiled something that's kadosh. You may have also caused a monetary loss to the kohen or to someone else. But lamaisi, you haven't done. Reish Lakish says you get malchus for that. Rabbi Yochanan says inoloke. Rabbi Yochanan says you don't get malchus. Reish Lakish amar loke b'chol kodesh l'siga. Reish Lakish says you get malchus. Why? Because it's in the first pasuk. The pasuk says you can't touch kodesh if you're tamei. Rabbi Yochanan omer inoloke hahu asharahu l'truma hudasa. Rabbi Yochanan says, "B'chol kodesh lo siga rabosai" is not the prohibition to touch kodesh. Rather, it's what? It's the prohibition ultimately to consume truma in a state of tuma. So, what's that? Fundamental machlokes Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish. Do you get malchus for touching truma when you are tamei? Reish Lakish says yes. Rabbi Yochanan says no. Reish Lakish says yes. The pasuk says "B'chol kodesh lo siga." Rabbi Yochanan says lo siga doesn't mean don't touch. Lo siga means what? Means what? Don't eat. Don't consume. Tamei shenaga b'kodesh. So Reish means the tamei person goes and eats kodesh. Tamei touches on his kodesh. Mida'at kirachmana b'lashon negia as hara la'ochel iskish kodesh lemikdash. Ultimately, again, we say that lamaisig, and since the Torah went ahead and phrased it b'lashon negia, therefore, again, it compares ultimately again to one who enters into the mikdash. But in 1 second, is this what it's coming to teach me? I need that pasuk to teach about somebody who went ahead and ate sacrificial meat before what? Before the blood was sprinkled. Somebody goes at it who is tamei, eats sacrificial meat before the blood was sprinkled. Reish Lakish amar loke. Reish Lakish says you get malchus. Rabbi Yochanan amar loke. Rabbi Yochanan says you don't get malchus. Reish Lakish amar loke. B'chol kodesh lo siga lo shna lifnei zrika lo shna la'achar zrika. Reish Lakish, the pasuk says you shall not touch any kodesh, which now apparently Reish Lakish is saying is teaching you to learn what? Consumption. And it doesn't make a difference if I consume it before the sprinkling of the blood or after the sprinkling of the blood. Rabbi Yochanan amar loke. Rabbi Yochanan says you don't get malchus. Why not? Rabbi Yochanan the Tamei da amar tumaso. Damarkra, tumaso. Pasuk says tumaso. V'chiksiv tumaso la'achar zrikahu dichsiv. And Rabbi Yochanan says when the pasuk talks about the prohibition of a person who was tamei consuming sacrificial items, when is it referring to? After the sprinkling of the blood. Hahi, to which the Gemara says 1 second. The prohibition of consuming sacrificial meat before the blood was sprinkled, mibechol kodesh nafka. We'll say that's learned out from the pasuk of Kol Kodesh. Tanya Kavasi Reish Lakish. We have a brayso that supports Reish Lakish. B'chol Kodesh lo siga. You cannot touch any Kodesh. Ashar lo ochel. So we'll say this is the warning not to consume sacrificial meat in a state ultimately again of tumah. Ata omer ashar lo ochel. O eina el ashar lo nogea. You say that it's a prohibition to consume. Maybe it's a prohibition ultimately again to touch. Talmud Lomar b'chol kodesh lo siga ve'ala mikdash lo savo. Well, so the Torah equates: do not go ahead and touch any kodesh, and do not enter into the Beis Hamikdash. Makish kodesh lo mikdash. Ma mikdash davar sheish bo netilas neshama. Just like Rabbi say, entering into the Beis Hamikdash, you're referring to an entering that has with it a prohibition of kares, which Rabbi refers to what? Someone who enters into the Beis Hamikdash knowingly, even though what? They're tameh, there is going to be a prohibition of kares, or a punishment of kares. Af kol davar sheish bo netilas neshama. Ve'imigya, Rabbi said, therefore, again, what we're assuming is the juxtaposition says, B'chol kodesh lo tiga, ve'ala mikdash lo yavo. So just like ala mikdash lo yavo is referring to an entry which has with it a chi of kares, which refers to someone who knows that he's tameh, but still enters into the Beis Hamikdash in the state of tumah. Therefore, again, the b'chol kodesh lo siga must also be referring to a prohibition of kares. So the Gemara says, Av kodesh v'ibn igia. Then I will say, if you're going to tell me that b'chol kodesh lo siga means what? Touching kodesh. Mi'ika netilas neshama. I will say, is there a prohibition of kares? If someone who is tameh simply what? Touches that which is tameh, of course, if someone who is tameh touches kodesh, and the answer to that, of course, is no. Ella ba'achila. Rather, what do you see from Rabbi saying? That the phrase or the prohibition, b'chol kodesh lo siga, does not actually mean that someone who is tameh may not touch kodesh. Rather, again, what does it mean? B'chol kodesh lo siga means a prohibition of consumption. And how do I know that? I know that through the juxtaposition of to the la mikdash lo yavo. Just like la mikdash lo yavo is talking about an entry that has a chi of kares, i.e., someone who is tameh, who knowingly enters into the Beis Hamikdash in a state of tumah. So to b'chol kodesh lo siga also refers to a prohibition of kares. What kind of prohibition of kares was it could we be speaking about? Can't be talking about touching, because touching doesn't have a prohibition of kares. Rather, it must mean what? Someone who is tameh and knowingly consumes kodesh products will be subject to the prohibition of kares. All right, we'll stop over here. We'll pick up the rest of this conversation in Meretz Hashem. A similar cover. Not the same as the sun, but it's a little in the ballpark. Yeah, 100%. Right. Okay. Right. Yes. Good stuff. Have a good Have a good week. Take care. Yeah.